and welcome to another video. I'm Random and today I'm going to be reading the fanfiction Alternate Perspectives from the Fallen Star series written by Boxmaker. This is a Hermitcraft SMP fanfiction with a rating of mature, and the creator chose not to use any archive warnings, though personally I'd put in graphic depictions of violence for a few scenes. The category for this fic is General, and the featured characters are Etho-slab, Vintage Beef, BOO, DogM77, Good Times with Scar, Cubfan135, Iscal85, and other original characters. There are no romantic relationships, but the featured platonic relationships are Etho-slab and Vintage Beef, BOO, Etho-slab and Vintage Beef, Cubfan135, and Good Times with Scar. The additional tags are superpowers, alternate universe superheroes/superpowers, injury, blood and injury, hijinks and shenanigans, drinking, heist, hurt comfort, non-consensual body modification, Etho-centric, oops, I gave him trauma, kidnapping, medical torture, needles. Don't worry, he'll be mostly okay in the long run. These tags make it seem dark, but I promise this is lighthearted. The summary is in the description, and now on to the story. Content warnings for threats, mentions of blood, death, and knives. Chapter 11. Breaking and Entering. 3 hours before the heist. The journey to Concorp was easy, and both Cub and Scar were waiting there for them. Cub insisted on reviewing the plan again, much to their dismay, and Scar gave them the same safety lecture they had heard 100 times before. "Are you ready?" Scar asked as they filed out of the room. "I guess," Etho replied. His heart was beating so fast he felt like his chest was going to explode. "Your first time is always when you're the most nervous. It'll be easier next time. You've done this before." It wasn't a question. Scar winked at him, but didn't reply. 1.5 hours before the heist. Cub and Scar promised they would be there when they returned, so with that, the three of them headed down to the parking garage. B-Dubs had provided his own car, because all the ones in Concorp's garage were too expensive and flashy to go under the radar. His car was red, with small rust patches and more than a few dents. B-Dubs patted the driver's side mirror, which held it together with a few strips of duct tape. "She hasn't broken down yet this week," he boasted. Etho and Beef shared a worried look before Etho launched himself towards the front seat, with Beef hot on his heels. "Too slow," Etho gloated, and Beef climbed dejectedly into the back seat. "I want the front on my way back." "Stop acting like 5-year-olds, B-Dubs yelled, turning the car on. 1 hour before the heist. They stopped on the way to pick up a pizza, and made Beef go in and grab it because B-Dubs was driving and Etho claimed he didn't want to blow his cover. He changed out of his green jacket into a red hoodie while they waited. The hood sat nicely on his head, and he arranged his hair to cover the top portion of his face, so he would be better hidden from any security cameras. B-Dubs drummed his fingers against the steering wheel, and Etho kept looking anxiously out of the window, waiting for Beef to return. Sometime later, Beef clambered back into the car, complaining about the long wait. He shoved the pizza box up front, and Etho grabbed it gingerly because it was burning hot. Etho cranked the radio up, and B-Dubs took them to their final destination. 23 minutes before the heist. They circled the block a few times looking for a place to park, and managed to find one on a nearby side street. B-Dubs only hit the curb once while parking and shut off the car with a click. Etho stared at the pizza longingly. He was starting to feel a bit hungry, but he was also slightly nauseous from his nerves, so going in on an empty stomach was probably the best option. Beef flippered open his laptop and started pulling out the maps which he had neatly marked. He tossed one of the radios to Etho and continued setting up. B-dubs watched them both with wide eyes. The radio was easy enough to clip to the inside of his pants, and he ran the wire of the earpiece through the hoodie. The earpiece was hidden by the hood, and thankfully the rain and chilly air made it reasonable enough for him to keep the hood up. They tested the radios, Beef organized the maps, then organized them again for good measure. "Are we ready?" Etho asked. "You've got everything?" Beef said. Etho opened up his bag to check and nodded. "I'm, going," he said unceremoniously, grabbing the pizza box. Better for him to get this over with before he lost the nerve. "Be safe," Beef said with a nod. And with that, Etho climbed out of the car onto the wet street and made his way towards the high-rise building. The heist. Etho clicked a button on the radio so Beef could hear everything coming from his end. Then he jogged towards the building and ducked under the awning out front, under the sign that read, Omega Apartments. The pizza box had gotten a bit wet, but it would have to do. A man in a dark suit stood at the door, but didn't stop him from entering. Inside was beautiful. The front door opened up to a brightly lit lounge, with a front desk off to the side, reminding him of a hotel. A few people were milling about, some in suits, others in sweatpants. The man behind the front desk looked up from his book and gave him an appraising look, and Etho's heart stuttered in his chest. Should he make eye contact or keep going? What was the proper procedure here? "Do you need help finding a room?" "No," Etho said a bit quickly. "I've been here before, thanks." The desk attendant returned to his reading, and Etho made his way through the lounge, deeper into the building. "You should go right whenever you can. There will be a hallway that leads to the elevators," Beef said through the radio. The elevator was right where Beef said it would be, and thankfully no one else got in with him. "In the elevator," Etho informed Beef, trying to keep his breathing steady. He was sweating uncomfortably in his hoodie despite the fact it was cool inside. The door slid open to the 14th floor with a ding, and Etho stepped out into the hallway. It looked like a normal apartment building, albeit a nice one, with neat carpet and unblemished walls. Apartment 1485 was the one he needed to find, and naturally there were no signs to point him in the right direction. "Where to?" he whispered, in case there was someone around the bend of the hallway that he couldn't see. "Down the hall, then make the second left. The door should be in that hallway once you get there." Etho hurriedly made his way down the hall as fast as he could without running. He hastily switched his vision to third person so he could see around the corner before he made the turn. If there was someone there, he would have to wait until they left, unless he wanted to explain why no one answered the door when he tried to make his delivery. There was no one in the hall, so he continued, counting the numbers as he went from the 1470s to 1480s and... there, 1485. The door was grey like all the others. Etho had almost been expecting some highly security metal door with a fancy combination lock, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. Out of the corner of his eye, he swore there was a flash of movement, but it vanished as soon as he looked in their direction. The nerves were really starting to get to him. He shook his head and focused on the task at hand, pulling out a device from Cub. "I'm trying the door," he informed Beef, who muttered in assent. He held up the device to the scanner and pressed the button. The light on the scanner flashed for a second before flickering to green. The door unlocked with a click. He opened it quickly, wrapping his hands in his sweatshirt so he didn't directly touch the doorknob. He hadn't worn the gloves in the lobby to avoid suspicion. Etho slung his backpack off his bad shoulder in case he needed to reach for his gas mask quickly. The apartment was dark and quiet. There was no sign he had triggered any alarms, so he hit the light switch next to the door. The front door opened up directly to a small sitting room with a plush couch and pristine coffee table. Behind the couch was a kitchen with a doorway on the left that looked like it led into a hallway. "I'm in," he whispered, dropping the pizza on the coffee table, tugging on his gloves, and pulling the suffocating hood down. The apartment was cozy, not what he was expecting for an assassin. The place was neatly decorated and immaculately clean. There were no signs that this was the home of someone incredibly deadly. "What do you see?" Beef asked. "It looks like a normal apartment from what I can tell. There's a sofa and a kitchen." "Any documents?" "Not yet." He gingerly took a few steps into the room, triple-checking to make sure he had shut and locked the front door behind him. While the place was mostly orderly, the kitchen table was covered with a spread of loose papers. Etho sifted through the papers, taking care not to mess them up too much. He found everything from receipts to bank statements. It appeared that being a hitman paid quite well. There were some diagrams that he set aside to take a closer look later, because the handwriting was small and appeared to be quite detailed. As he sifted through a pile of letters in a language he didn't understand, his eyes caught on the corner of a TAM folder hidden beneath the files of paper. The front of the folder was stamped with the Alphatec logo. "I think I found something," he informed Beef. "What is it?" "Hold on," he muttered, flipping the file open and scanning the top page. Project T. Final report. On April, at approximately, the alarms of facility number were triggered, indicating the opening of an unregistered door. Upon closer investigation, it was revealed the cell was housing none other than Project T. All badge access was immediately disabled and the building was placed under lockdown. Patrol units dressed in flame-proof combat gear were sent to the scene to neutralize target. Subject T was officially reported missing and all the entirety of site was placed into lockdown. The subject was seen briefly fleeing the scene with the help from a former employee known as... As of now, it is unknown how they managed to override keycard access and make it to the perimeter of the site unnoticed. Due to interference with all the vehicles on site, we were unable to pursue the escapees. Addendum 1. A more detailed report of the escape can now be found under Project T Escape Report A. It is believed that Project T and received help from a third party. Final results? Inconclusive. "This doesn't really mean much to me," Etho whispered after glancing at the file on top. It seemed Alphatec may have had some subjects that had gotten free. The thought made his stomach turn, but it seemed whoever it was might have escaped. He hoped they did. Etho shut the file and tucked it under his arm. There were still diagrams on the table, but he didn't see anything obviously marking them as Alphatec's property, so he wanted to take a look around before he went looking through them. "I've got one file that belongs to Alphatec. I'm going to check the rest of the apartment." "Sounds good." He entered the hallway to the left of the kitchen and was met with a small space that contained 3 doors. The one immediately in front of him was a bathroom, so he went left first. Etho tugged the doorknob gently, listening for any clicks or snaps that would indicate he triggered something he shouldn't have. So far, he had gotten lucky. Naturally, his luck ran out, because when he turned the doorknob, it wouldn't budge. He applied a bit more force, but still nothing. "There's a locked door," he hissed to Beef. "Do you see a key anywhere?" "If I saw a key, we wouldn't be having this conversation." He headed back to the main room. Next to the door was a small dish with a few rubber bands, a black lanyard, and a pack of gum. It looked like the perfect home for a flash drive, so Etho dropped his infected drive into the disk. "Enjoy your free virus," he thought with a grin. Keyless, Etho went back into the hallway, still carrying the file from the table. This time he went to the right instead of the left. The door was unlocked and opened up to a bedroom. A queen-sized bed with a green kilt took up most of the space, and a dresser was crammed into the corner. Opposite the door was a walk-in closet. "I found his bedroom," he said. "If I were a key, where would I be?" There was a small table next to the bed, which seemed like the most likely candidate. The top drawer had no less than 6 knives in it, all shining and well-polished. The bottom drawer contained a sewing kit and dozens of loose buttons. He began shifting through the piles of books next to the bed when he heard the unmistakable jangle of keys being jammed into the lock of the front door. "Fuck!" Etho breathed and dove under the bed. "Etho, are you alright?" Beef yelled. And after a few seconds, "Etho? Etho, what happened?" Etho clapped a hand over his mask to muffle his breathing and pushed himself all the way under the bed. Heavy footsteps thudded in the other room. "Etho, please answer me. What the hell is happening?" He didn't even dare breathe, so he listened to Beef plead with him in silence. He had shifted directly under the center of the bed, but pulled himself forward as far as he dared, switching his vision to third person. It took a bit of shifting for him to get his vision to position itself not under the bed, but now he could see into the hallway a little bit. He would be able to see whoever it was a second before they came into the room. The angle hurt his neck, so he blinked back to first person and listened intently for footsteps. All he heard was Beef panicking on the other side of the call. Beef sounded scared, which was making him nervous. His hands were shaking by his sides, and it was a miracle the pounding of his heart hadn't given him away, even though the unexpected visitor was all the way in the kitchen. His breathing came in pitiful rasps, but he tried to take deep breaths. Whoever had entered Iskal's apartment, because Etho didn't want to even entertain the idea that it was Iskal himself, was making quite a racket in the kitchen. He heard the sink running, pots and pans clanging about, and holy shit, he had left the pizza on the living room table. Maybe they hadn't noticed? Etho hoped they were as unobservant as he slowly shimmied out from under the bed. B-Dibs and Beef were arguing about what to do, and Beef sounded like he was going to cry, and Etho was not going to be the reason Beef cried. So he crept over to the closet and shut himself in. It was pitch black, but with the door between himself and the person in the kitchen, Etho felt secure enough to whisper. "Beef?" he hissed as loudly as he dared. "Etho!" Beef yelled, effectively shutting B-Dibs up. "What the hell happened? Are you alright?" "I'm fine," Etho replied, hesitating for a moment before continuing. "Someone came home." The other end of the line fell quiet. "Could you repeat that?" Beef asked steadily. "There is someone in the fucking kitchen." "Are you safe?" asked B-Dibs, whose voice sounded distant. "For the moment." "Where are you now?" Beef asked, voice shaking slightly. "Bedroom closet," Etho whispered, straining to hear what was happening in the kitchen. He peered through the slats of the closet door, but didn't see much over the bed. "Just try and stay calm," Beef suggested. "Oh, I am so calm right now," Etho hissed through clenched teeth. He wrapped his arms around himself to keep them from shaking. It was only then that he realized his whole body was trembling. His mind raced, outpacing the pounding of his heart. Was it Iskal who had come home? That should be impossible. Scar insisted that he was currently away on business. Would Scar lie to him? Yes. No, not about this. Scar wanted this plan to succeed. There was no point in sending Etho into danger when he was just going to get caught. Actually, that sounded exactly like something Scar would do. "That fucker," Etho whispered to himself, momentarily forgetting that Beef could hear him. He didn't have the time to ponder Scar's motives right now. He needed to focus on not getting caught. "Who?" Beef asked. "Later." Maybe the person in the kitchen wasn't Iskal. It was just someone who happened to have the key and decided to make themselves dinner. Etho tried very hard to convince himself of this fact. He was unsuccessful. "Maybe you can just wait them out," Beef suggested. "I'm gonna have to. There's no way I can get to the front door unnoticed." "Are you in a good hiding spot?" Etho shrugged to himself. "Decent enough. I might have to go back to under the bed, though. The blankets hang down almost to the floor, and if they open the closet, I'm screwed." "Don't get caught." "I won't. I'll have to be quiet, though. I don't want them to hear." "Copy." Etho grinned weakly as he peeked between the closet door slats. He didn't see anyone, and the noise in the kitchen had stopped. The door eased forward as he slowly pushed it and crept out of the closet. He dashed for the bed as quickly as he dared and pulled himself back under it without a sound. The floor was hard against his stomach and it was dustier than he would have liked, but he was safe for the time being. The file he had collected from the table was a bit bent, but he managed to get it into his bag, doing a bit of complicated gymnastics in the tight space. 5 minutes went by, then 10. Beef and B-dubs chattered away in his ear, but he didn't mind the company. It was a little less scary knowing the two of them were with him. The other room was silent, only broken by the occasional ding of a dish or creak of the floorboards. His initial panic wore off as the time crept by, and he started to worry, not about being found, but about how long he would have to stay under the bed. He had room to move, but he was far from comfortable. Dishes clattered in the other room, and heavy footsteps crossed the kitchen. The footsteps stopped momentarily, then started up again. They were getting closer. Heavy footfalls drummed closer and closer until a pair of heavy boots appeared at the doorway of the bedroom. Etho breathed shallowly and didn't move as he tracked the footsteps. They moved to the other side of the room and opened the closet. Etho felt sick. Hangers clacked together as the person dug around the closet. The closet door was shut, and the feet stepped closer to the bed. Etho didn't dare breathe as he watched the boots from his hiding spot. "Go away," he wailed. The boots stopped at the edge of the bed and paused for a moment. The bed cover draping over the gap between the bed and the floor was lifted up, and a face poked its head under the bed. "Hello there," a faintly accented voice said. Etho yelled and launched himself backwards, rolling out from underneath the bed, opposite to the person in the boots. He shot towards the door, switching his vision to third person so he could see the person behind him, who was right on his tail. Beef and B-dubs had started yelling again, demanding to know what the hell was going on. Etho didn't pay them any mind as he slammed the bedroom door shut behind him and reverted back to his normal vision. No time, no time, no time, Etho thought, making a split-second decision and swinging into the bathroom, whipping the door shut behind him. He twisted the lock shut and braced his back against the door. Etho slid down, gasping for breath. "Etho, what the hell is happening?" Beef yelled from the other end of the call. There was a soft knock on the door. Etho jumped away from the door and whipped around, arms raised in defense. Whoever was on the other side didn't try to bust the door down. A gentle voice called out, "Listen, I've got the key to get in there. Don't make me use it. Open the door." "Is that Iskal?" Beef shrieked in panic. "Go away," Etho said lamely. What the hell was he thinking, telling the probable owner of the apartment he broke into to fuck off? He giggled nervously and slid down the far wall next to a vintage bathtub. "How about this?" the voice, Iskal, said. "I won't kill you if you unlock the door and come out. If you make me come in there, I make no promises." The possibility that it was in fact Iskal and not someone else grew as he casually threatened to kill Etho. "Don't listen to him," Beef begged. Etho wanted to respond, but he didn't want the person outside of the bathroom to know he was talking to someone on the outside. "You have 15 seconds, the voice said cheerfully. "How do I know I can trust you?" Etho asked, trying to keep his voice from wavering. There was a slight pause. "Well, if you came out here, I wouldn't kill you because you'd be standing on the rug, and I don't want to clean your blood out of the rug. If you stay in there, blood's pretty easy to mop off the tiles." Beef was spluttering nonsense at this point. Etho couldn't even tell what he was saying. He could hear B-dubs faintly in the background telling him to not be stupid. Etho didn't want to die. He flicked out his pocket knife and held it in a sideways grip. "I'll unlock the door," he said, pulling himself up from the floor and crossing the room. Etho held the knife tightly and popped the door open with a click. This story was not written by me. It was written by Boxmaker on Archive of Our Own. This fanart was also not made by me. It was made by someone else. Most of the sound effects used in this video aren't mine. Most of the sound effects used in this video also aren't mine. You can find proper credits for all of those things in the description. I hope you enjoyed this chapter, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.